Welcome to Malaïka, the talk show for African Christian women. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. We hope you'll stay with us to the end as we discuss the topic for the day. So to assist me navigate this topic about the challenges of being a single mother, I have with me my co-hosts, Auntie Zot and Jackie. And Mama Audrey, we thank you for being with us. And, you know, this topic is something that
touches many lives.
It does, you know. So we really look forward to hearing what you have to say to us today.
Amen. I'm sure we all have to say something and to contribute to that program, and we will.
Yes, we do.
And to also contribute further into the program today, we have a guest all the way from Zimbabwe, Bulawayo, but we'll hear from her later on in the show. And before we go into detail, we'll hear the overview from Jackie. So Jackie, I mean, everyone has commented, we're looking forward to this. So you can just start and let us know what you have in your overview.
Okay, so bird's eye view to start off with. Challenges of being a single mother. Okay, so let's go globally first and then we'll zoom in. Of the world's 2.3 billion children, 14% are living in single-parent households, and most of these headed by single mothers. This is about 1 in 7 children. In the USA, 49% of there are black single mothers. And 4% of these black homes are headed only by fathers. The rest are headed by women. Now let's go to South Africa. A report done in South Africa shows that 33% of children live with both parents. And of those who live in single-parent homes, 39% live with their moms, and the rest, which is only 4%, live with their fathers. I'll say the full figure here just to get your mind around it. 989,318, which is just under 1 million, of children born in South Africa in 2018, 62% had no information of their father on the birth certificate.
Wow.
Wow, well, that's a big number.
Now, in Botswana, Namibia, and Swaziland, single mother households account for almost 45%.
That's a lot.
Now, causes, what are the reasons for this phenomenon? I'll go quickly into the past. In the past, it was because of disease, because of war, because of mortality and accidents. This was a high reason why women were single. It was estimated that 1/3 of the children had lost a parent during childhood. This is way back in the 1700s, 1800s. Okay. But today, the situation is a bit different. Today, it's because of social, cultural factors. We have divorce, separation, abandonment, which is very high. For example, in Ghana, I've got a statistic. Divorce rates rose from about 40% in the 1970s to over 60% in the 1980s. The incidence of cohabitation and non-marital childbearing, particularly noteworthy in the Western areas, but this has come down into Africa as well. Another reason, we have unplanned pregnancy, we have unintended pregnancy, but also I have to note that some women actually choose to have a child on their own. Either they do it by choice, they can either go to a sperm bank or they adopt by choice. Also in South Africa, another reason now is because of AIDS. 48% of adults have died because of AIDS. And we also have migration. Many people don't live at home anymore, and so they leave the mom with the child. The trend for single mothers and absent fathers appears to be racial, as I said. And it's greatest in African men, to be separate, and lowest in Indian men. Okay. More than 50%, this is a South African statistic, more than 50% of women interviewed had their first birth, the first child, when they were unmarried. More than 50%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so this is the first child. So second child, I don't have the statistics whether they got married afterward, but this is the first birth. Quickly, I'll touch on some challenges faced. We've got financial challenges, a lack of income from both parents. Divorced women are less likely to provide for their children as the same way a married couple would. We've got emotional lacks, we've got loneliness, helplessness, we've got social stigma, gender discrimination, unemployment, stigmatization, personal difficulties also. To end it, I'll have a short comment, not a proverb. I love proverbs, but I couldn't find one. But I'll have a comment. The comment is, the term single mother is backwards. It should be mother single, because the lady said, because I'm first a mother and then I'm single.
Okay.
That's to end.
Thank you very much for that.
Shocking.
My pleasure.
It's shocking because the numbers are quite high.
We had no idea of those kind of numbers.
They're
Quite
very
high. And, you know, considering the stats that we've heard from Jackie, what is the actual status quo that is taking place on the ground in Southern Africa, Auntie Zods?
Yes, thanks, Rose. We're just narrowing it down to the church, because in the world, it's the figures she's already mentioned. But in the church, they are growing at that same alarming rate. There's so much divorce happening, separation happening, and a lot of young ladies who have children out of wedlock who are coming to the church. And it's a challenge for them to integrate into the church. Yes, so I was talking about this young lady that was in the church, and she fell pregnant, and obviously she fell, and she realized before the Lord she had sinned, and she repented and was restored back into the church. But now what she faced after that is the rejection still, with sisters talking behind her back. And also she said that she felt bitterness because now she's got a child that she has to raise on her own. She has to discipline on her own or raise by herself. But the father of the child cracks on with his life. He's free. He carries on meeting other women. And for her now, she's got this responsibility that she has to carry on.
She never counted the cost before she went for ahead.
Exactly, and she's young, so now she's got this big responsibility on her own. Then now I'll move on. The other group of sisters that find themselves single is the divorce, through the divorce which we've spoken about. And we find that those sisters, when they're sharing, it's not just now the children that they are looking at, it's going through the divorce itself. It's shattered.
Traumatizing.
Yeah.
She's already finished because of what she's facing from society on that divorce. On top of that, now she's got 2, 3, or 4, even sometimes 5 children to now pick up, take care of them.
Look after
and you're trying to keep positive for the sake of the children. And for her, she has to pull herself together very quickly so that the children, life can carry on. And generally in Africa, when the husband leaves, financial support is cut off. I haven't spoken to one lady that says that the man
Has
continued.
to pay.
Generally, he cuts off the support, and then now maybe she's not working. Now she has to look for a job. And generally, the lifestyle of the family also now has to change because they can't afford to live the lifestyle that they had. And in some cases, the children actually turn against her because they see, if you hadn't left Dad, we would be living better. So now everyone, even the children are against her, and they can't understand why have things had to
Sometimes
change.
his dad was left as well. It's not necessarily her who was left dad. It's many times dad left.
Most of the time, Dad leaves, but the children blame Mom because life has changed for us. It's how it's children. That's what they see. And then widows. You'd think that it would be easy to be a widow and people will actually be compassionate and come around you and support you. But in fact, sometimes, especially with our mentality in Africa, you're normally blamed for the loss or for the death of your husband.
What a shame.
Most of the time, society, culturally, the woman is blamed for the death of her husband. And I'll touch on briefly that one of our tribes, if the father dies, his family comes and takes everything away from the wife. And then now she's left with the children and nothing. No resources whatsoever. So for these women, I'll be honest, for me, my heart goes out to them, one.
Such a challenge.
And it's amazing how they have to live and cope with this responsibility.
Very, very hard.
Yeah.
You know, Mama Audrey, it is very, very hard. And we would really love to hear what is the heart of the Lord for single mothers facing their own unique issues of being widowed, divorced, and actually having a child out of wedlock.
You know, the heart of the Lord is the same for all of us. He wants the best for us. His grace is there for us to help us. But there are situations that we find ourselves in that we can't blame the Lord. He's not responsible. We brought ourselves in those situations. You know, even Zodwa is speaking about families, women who find themselves with 5 children. I mean, in the first place, you did the 5 children. And now you find yourself having to raise 5 children. And even married, it's not easy to raise 5 children today. So there are definitely situations where you see there's been responsibilities. We have encountered the cost, like that little girl who fell pregnant, and now a whole youth is destroyed. She's got to look after the baby, and dad is having fun, and his life is continuing as nothing else. This is why the Lord says we must be very careful of our lives, of what we do, of the way we lead our lives. Of course, the grace of the Lord is here, but there are things that she will have to, you know, when her lifestyle changes, when she's got no salary. I mean, she'll have to go through situations that were not meant to be, that were not planned, that she will have to face. So obviously, the Lord loves them, the heart of the Lord reaches out to them, and they must feel that from the church. Yes. They mustn't feel judged, because it's hard enough to go through that they are going through. But unfortunately, as Zodoa said, culture is a big problem, where Christians do not live really as Christians. They are, first of all, bound to their culture. They react according to culture. They judge according to culture. And there's no room for the heart of the Lord to be expressed. We can relate that to the woman that was caught in adultery. In the Gospels. And the Pharisees were so happy because tradition says she must be stoned. She was caught in adultery and she must be stoned to death. They were so happy with what the culture said, the Jewish culture and tradition said. And when they brought her to Jesus, they were waiting to see, now how he's going to get out of this one. Now we've nailed him. And Jesus didn't let himself being, you know, distracted by these guys. And he sorted out the situation. At the end of the day, he said to the woman, you know, where are those who blame you? Because Jesus doesn't blame her. The Lord knows her heart. He knows if she's repented in her heart. If maybe she lived that life and she didn't even like it. Yes. We don't know. It's easier to let go when you know you find yourself with 5 children. Everything's gone. You lost your in-laws. You lost your revenues, you lost your life, your house. What do you do? It's easier to give up, huh? It's easier to, to find desperate solutions that are not the right ones. So how much more they need to be encouraged, and the church need to make room to see how we can help them, how we can assist them, maybe help them find a job, help them to run their finances. Because like when my father died, my mother had never written a check in her life. Because my father did everything for her. And from one day to another, she had never driven a car, she had never written a check, she had never made a budget in her life. And we were 6 kids. Wow. And when he died, she knew nothing. She was 52 years old. She had to learn everything from scratch.
So, you know.
So now we were not in the church. We were in a religion. But in the church, we should have help, we should have counsel, we should have advice. The church should provide for that kind of thing and be sensitive to this category of people, because they do need help.
So we can really take this opportunity to hear from our sister Lynette Chikwanda in Zimbabwe, Bulawayo. Lynette, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. So Lynette, growing up, most women, you know, we have this mentality of perfect home, perfect children, mom and dad together. But now, what was your initial reaction when you realized that you were going to be a single mother?
It was a very, very difficult time, I must say. And you are right, we all grow up wanting the perfect family, the perfect home, perfect kids and everything. But once you get to that point where you realize that you're going to get a divorce and you will be a single mother, it's very, very difficult. But I think the biggest issues really were the judgment that we face in society, from friends, from family, even within the church, you know. The judgment, I think, is the biggest issue that we fear the most. And that was one of my biggest issues when I went through this, was the judgment. It's the marriage is the biggest thing for a woman in our culture. You get married, everyone is happy, that's what you identify yourself with. And now you're getting a divorce. And to everyone, it's a failure. You've literally failed. You failed yourself, you failed your husband, your family, your children. So that was the biggest thing for me, was judgment from everyone around me.
So, Lynette, what has raising your children single-handedly involved? What challenges have you faced in that aspect?
I have faced a million challenges. Remember, when the Lord put man and woman together, we're supposed to raise children together. The father has his role, the mother has her role. But here I am, single mother, having to face both roles. I struggled with that for a very, very long time. I remember speaking to a sister in the church who then said to me, you do not have to take on both of those roles. The Lord has made you woman to be a mother. You stick to that role and allow the Lord to come in and be father to your children. And that's the one thing that carried me through many challenges with the kids. I had a child who was 9. I had a child who was 3.5, a child who was 1.5. So all of those challenges just came in one big ball of challenges. And once I was able to let go, it didn't happen straight away. It took a long time because I had to discipline the children. I had to teach them right from wrong, all on my own. But once I was able to let go and allow the Lord to take over, it actually got easier. It got easier, but it's not perfect. I'm still learning and I'm still moving forward.
So spiritually, emotionally, and financially, things must have changed. How did you then deal with that lifestyle change, and what kept you?
We had to adjust a lot of things in our lives. We had to move schools, we had to change homes. We had to do without a lot of things that we had become so accustomed to. And I think the Lord really assisted me so much. He brought in sisters in the church that I was able to open up to speak to express myself, to cry with. I remember the first day I got my actual divorce certificate. I sobbed for hours and hours. And I think it was just the sorrow of saying, finally, I've got this. And now I'm literally going to face everything on my own. But the Lord was such a support. He brought these brothers and sisters in to assist me. My own biological family was such a great help. They came in. The Lord literally lined up things for me. I wasn't working at the time, and He opened doors for me. A job came up. It was a contract job, and once it was finished, after about a month, He had something else lined up for me. So for me, that was a way of the Lord showing me that He was taking care. He was there. So spiritually, He brought these brothers and sisters in who were there to uplift me. And once I was at a place where I could almost stand on my own, He was able to release them as well. So, and even now it's ongoing. It's an ongoing process. I'm still a single mother, still raising the kids on my own. Challenges are still there. They're still ongoing. But He has put people in my life who can actually assist me.
Okay, so now, Mama Audrey, we've heard that testimony from our sister Lynette, so now how can we encourage single mothers that are playing the role of both mom and dad to raise their children according to the ways of the Lord?
I think that, first of all, Rose, I would encourage them to get out of the victim mentality, and especially for them and for their children.
Okay.
These children mustn't feel like they are victims. We must be able to draw a line and carry on with life.
Okay.
They cannot live with that past and keep thinking of the past and keep thinking of what happened and keep thinking of what they are in situation. Somewhere down the line, I want to encourage them to draw the line, to accept the state they are in, the way the Lord accepts them, and to be able to help the children grow the same way. Okay. Otherwise, these kids, if mainly the mother is speaking wrongly about the father and is bearing that victim spirit and attitude, that will have a direct influence on the kids. I remember when Mickey started traveling, and Mickey and I, we started traveling, our kids were young. It's a different comparison, but it's still the same principle.
Okay.
It was important for them to feel that we love them and for them to release us, and not that they were victims of the church.
Okay.
Because many kids when their parents neglect them or they feel neglected because the parents are doing so much things in the church, they have it against the church. And the same thing, these kids must not have it against their father or against God or against anything. They must feel, the mother must explain to them that, you know, these things happen. That's not what we wanted, but these things happen, but we mustn't have anything against Dad.
Exactly.
He's got his reasons, we don't understand, maybe Dad is suffering from something, and we must love Dad, and we must turn the page and realize that we are kids like many other kids are in the same situation, and we are the blessing to know the church, to know Jesus.
Exactly.
And that the Father, they have an heavenly Father.
Yes.
Who will provide for them. They mustn't worry, the Lord will take care of them as they grow in the Lord, and the Lord will make sure that their needs are met.
Exactly.
And they must grow in that atmosphere, because otherwise it's going to be very heavy on the kids and on the children and on the wife.
Exactly.
And at the end of the day, you know, that's life. Unfortunately, in this life, there's so much suffering. It can be the kids, it can be the wives, it can be the animals, it can be the woman. There is so much suffering. And they must be able to get on with life, to find their place in the church, to find families, to build relationship. We mustn't wait for meetings to be organized for single mothers or for widows. No. We must get going. In fact, the Bible speaks of widows serving the Lord, that the church must put them on the church roll. And support them, because this is part of the game. You know, our life, what happens in our life, we don't control circumstances. We can't guarantee circumstances, but what we know is that the promises of the Lord are still true. The grace of the Lord is still there. The Lord is still faithful. That doesn't change anything about the Lord, about His promises, and about His love for us.
So basically you're saying the clarity of them actually raising their kids is just through continuing with the norm and trust in the Lord for the rest. Is that what you're saying?
You know, they can't become a father. They can't build the characteristic of a father. They must, you know, like Gideon, go with what you have.
Yeah. The Lord will help you.
And the Lord will do the rest.
Exactly.
Go with what you have.
Okay.
Don't try to be something you're not. Don't try to play a role that you're not called to, that you're not equipped for.
Exactly.
Love your kids.
Yes.
You know, the most important person in the house is the mother.
Is the mother.
Okay.
Love your kids. Teach them good ways. Teach them the good ways of life. Speak to them about the Lord. Love them, cuddle them, pray with them, sing with them, show a heart, have time for them, and make up as much as you can for what's lacking. But the rest, the Lord, the church, the Bible, the gospel, as they come to know the Lord, Jesus will raise them in His ways.
Amen.
I mean, just a quick one, Auntie Zods, you know, what are the things that are actually crippling them, the fears that are actually crippling the single mothers in Southern Africa?
I think one of the things that we touched on is that, will I ever remarry? Should I ever remarry? Because speaking to one of the girls, she says when a young man proposed, now she's got this child. Her fear was, is he going to accept him? And then they had a child now together in the new marriage. And she thought he's going to overlove this side. And now she had to compensate. So it's that juggling. Then another one who had already 2 kids, married a man who had 2 kids. Now you've now got 4.
Integrate.
So all those questions is, should I live for my kids? Or should I remarry and try to make it work? I've met a few widows who've decided, I'm not remarrying. I'm just going to look after my children. This is it.
I think that is the best decision.
That's, yes. But you have the younger ones who are like trying to still, and they want to. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are many options. Some decide to remarry, some decide to live for their children. And for sure, each situation has got its advantages and its disadvantages.
Exactly, yeah.
Some have got risk, others less and different risks. So it's all a matter of the conviction of the person and I think their state, because if somebody, I think one thing I must say, it's very dangerous for 2 people who have felt rejected on that foundation to come together. The husband has been divorced, didn't work. The wife, this woman, has been divorced, and now they've been hurt, and they've been feeling isolated and whatever. And on that foundation, still in that situation of hurt. They have not been healed.
Yes,
They have not
yes,
turned the
yeah.
page. And still
Yeah.
on that foundation, they come together. This is a very serious situation.
Yeah.
Mama, as you mentioned, I'm just going to hold you right there so that in your final word, you can then help those that are in that situation to move on from that hurt, anger, and bitterness. Please put that in your final word for us, Mama.
Yes, I mean, bearing grudge is not a solution. Bitterness is not a solution. It's a last thing. It's a last state to be in, even if, especially if you're a Christian. Even if you're not a Christian, the best way is to ask the Lord to help you to forgive. And that needs to work. It's not a button that you press.
Exactly.
You must be able to come to the place where you see that man and you don't have any ill feeling. You don't feel that anger coming up. Because that is true freedom. And this is where the Lord wants to bring all of us, whatever our situation is. It can be against our boss. We could have lost a job. It can be against our husband, our in-laws, the family who came and took everything from us, whatever it is. Let us go to the Lord and ask him to help us forgive.
Mama, we thank you. I mean, we couldn't have ended it on a better note to show that there is hope. Thank you for your time as usual.
Yes.
Thank you to my co-host.
My
And thank you
pleasure.
to Lynette. We really appreciate you being with us today. Thank you for watching, viewers. I hope you will join us again soon. Please continue to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, as on the links at the bottom of the screen. So stay with us again for another program next week. Love you and God bless. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. We were very happy to have you, and we've got lots more interesting topics to discuss on Malaïka. But to stay up to date, you need to subscribe, as on the bottom of the screen. Just click that button, yeah, to stop me from talking. Click it and see you soon.